In time. We're going to start. Can somebody check the live stream? Let's start. Link. Link is coming. There it is. Right. Do you have the link, Yuri?
Ja, volgens mij werkt het.
No.
Geen beamer?
Yes. Wait, I'm going to connect the beamer as well. So today it's going to be about Sequelize. You have been working with ORM already because you have created one yourself. I want to point out again what ORM does, and I want to get you started with Sequelize, but also I want you to be able to understand the documentation of Sequelize, because there are some advanced features in there that I am going to explain to you later, like database seeding or migration. And when you start with Sequelize, you start with databases, you don't know yet what's relevant to you and what's not. So I want to walk you through it. What are the basic chapters of Sequelize in the documentation, what you should focus on in the beginning, and what's more advanced stuff. So it becomes easier to navigate through it. Be sure download it already. So does the mic work on YouTube? Can somebody check? Is somebody on YouTube right now on live stream? Is someone on YouTube? Yeah. All right. So that works. Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Where is Sequelize? So Sequelize is an ORM. Let's do a small recap what it is again. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping. The object, the programming part, and the relational part is the Sequelize. So what it does, it maps data SQL. I mean, it's SQL. The data SQL works with to something programming language can work with more directly. That's objects. So it maps objects to relational kind of data. And furthermore, it enables you use the database without using SQL queries. We focused on SQL queries in the beginning because it's more fundamental. I don't want to use too much abstraction, so that's why we use SQL queries that much. But ORMs are really prevalent and they're used a lot. But SQL queries are a much more transferable skill. But ORMs comes with a lot of nice features to have. It's more secure, for example. It does something. It did SQL's injections, for example. Those are not really possible when you're using an ORM. because it's already taking away everything that can harm your database directly. So in an input field, you could write an SQL-like query, and then it will interpret that as part of the SQL query. And so when it says first name, you're going to write select all from database or something. And that's how you can try to hack the database using something called SQL injections, because you're injecting an SQL query in a form, but ORMs have a security layer over it. It's not possible because they will check the input they got automatically, and they will spot, hey, that's a very weird first name or last name, or that's not something that's supposed to go in here. All right, so it's the same. So Sequelize is promise-based. Well, PG was already promise-based. And it's basically the same again, to work with a database without writing SQL queries. So this probably looks similar to the ORM we created ourselves. It's probably not that hard to understand what it does. It creates a user, right? Can somebody tell me how would the SQL query look like?
Can you invert the?
I wish I could, but in the browser it's really possible. Let's see. Let's see. I don't have Adobe yet on my new computer. Is it readable or is it not? Yeah. I have to use Adobe. So that's user.create, and specifies what kind of data you want to put in the table. So we're creating an entry in a row. What is the table?
User?
Yeah. Right. So in SQL query, this would look like insert into users, and then the name of the columns, it would be email, username, and then you would specify values, bloop@bleep.com, bloop bloop. But right now it looks a little bit cleaner, in my view. Yeah.
Is it because you've written user as singular as not as plural, and with
that's something what Sequelize does. Is it pluralizes tables for you automatically and singularizes entries for you automatically.
Okay.
So we're creating a user.
And like this, like I sometimes find it super hard to understand ORM, but this isn't like displays.
Yeah, this is using an ORM. Yeah.
Because and it is an ORM because it's within the object template.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see an ORM as an extra layer of abstraction between your JavaScript and the database.
Yeah.
So PG was the connection between Node.js and the database, because in the beginning we wrote SQL queries directly into the database using SQL shell. Then we used PG, which made a connection to the database from our Node.js environment. And now with an ORM, there's an extra layer of abstraction, which enables us not to write SQL queries, but to write the queries in this format.
Yeah, what was PG again? That was
PG is what you use to execute queries in a Node.js environment. So, for example, when you sign up a user, then the client, the browser communicates to your server, and which is Node.js, and Node.js communicates with the database, with its PostgreSQL. And PG is what enables Node.js to communicate to the PostgreSQL database. And now we have an ORM that runs on the server, and that is an extra layer of abstraction because we are not even writing SQL queries anymore. We write our queries like such. Oh, right here. This is what the ORM is doing for us. It's executing this query for us. And maybe when you remember the exercise about writing your own ORM, you did something very similar like this.
And also the returning everything, like, is that automatically always?
Yeah, it will return it automatically. So you can write a .then over here. And what's on the callback function? It's a .then. In .then you write functions.
In order to return everything?
It will return what is created here automatically. That's how Sequelize works.
Okay, because normally that's not the case, but normal if you write it in PG, right?
Exactly. In PG you have to say returning and an asterisk. So it adds that returning asterisk to all the queries. Here, see?
Simply means that you can immediately.
Yeah, we have an answer over here to what it does. Now we have user find all. So the query would look like how? Yeah, select all from users, and then it returns that result. I select all from always returns something, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. Give me all the users, but don't do anything with the result. And then the result is passed to the callback function of the .then method, and then you can work with it. Right? You could send it to Pug, or you could render it, or what they're doing in this case with it, they're separating all the values. So they're putting all the data values in column data, and putting all the emails in the emails there. They're filtering it, so to speak.
So like normally you would like, sometimes you would select a specific column, but now you basically first select everything, and then you loop in order to.
No, this is just an example of how you could manipulate the result. I wouldn't say this is standard. So that for loop here is to illustrate what you can do with the result of database query using Sequelize. Because I don't really know why you would do this, because it is already pretty well structured.
Yeah.
The result is already pretty well structured, and it is already in object format.
And if you would like select a specific column,
yeah,
you would first like.
Oh, here you could say rows to the data value.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that for loop is not standard. The for loop is just an example how you could work with the result of a query in Sequelize. And here they chose to separate the different kind of data. And here we have another example of a built-in the getter. You call these getters because they're getting information. Right? It's also a getter. Right now you can retrieve one row by using its ID. Again, select. Well, this could also be select all. It shows only to return 3 kinds of columns: ID, email, username. From users, you already know how to execute this. This is simplified. I find it strongly simplified. So I don't. At least I'm hoping that the switch to Sequelize is not harder. It's easier. But what's harder maybe about Sequelize is that the documentation is not written for beginners. It's written for people who already know about databases and want to look up how it works with Sequelize. But some features you don't know yet, and that's where I'm going to help you.
So is that a find by ID? Like I could also replace it by a different way.
Well, Sequelize has a standard built-in methods. Find by ID is one of them. Find all is one of them.
Okay.
Find one is also one of them, and you can specify what the criteria is. I'm going to show you later on how to use the documentation. Any questions so far? Right. So, what is Sequelize? Sequelize is a library or a module, package, whatever you want to call it, that you can install using a Node package manager. So Sequelize. I'm serious using Internet Explorer. Yes. Sequelize. Documentation. And what I want to clear out is how to navigate through this. Well, we're getting started, so nothing really mind-blowing over here. We are using npm, so we're installing Sequelize like any other module. npm install say Sequelize, and we want to now pretty sure you have to install PG as well, because that's one of the dependencies of Sequelize. And so why are they telling you to install one of these? Because Sequelize is an ORM that can work with different kinds of dialects of SQL languages. So it could be MySQL, SQLite, PostgreSQL. So it's telling you install Sequelize, but do not forget to also install the specific part of the database you are using. Yeah, ours is not here, but you have to install PG. When you install PG, you're good. Right? This is how you connect to the database. This also look really familiar to. Is it readable? Because I have the feeling this is readable. Yeah. This is better. Yeah. This is how you connect to the database. It's also really similar to name of the database, username, password, and you can use environment variables here, like you would use with PG. Dialect, so this is what kind of database are you using. MySQL is one, SQLite is one, Postgres is ours. So you don't have to write MySQL, SQLite, but just Postgres. And write Postgres here. This is not necessary. Could specify it. This is also not necessary because we're not using SQLite.
The full part is
this part is not necessary, and here you have to pick Postgres because we're using Postgres.
You have to do it?
Yeah, you have to specify the dialect. Yeah. And here is another option. So either one of these two. Here, the same kind of information that goes in here is written within a string. I think we have the same option with PG.
Can you still use no queries?
Yeah, there's an option, but it defeats a little bit the purpose of using Sequelize.
Yeah, I understand.
It's like buying a bicycle and then walking next to it.
Yeah, but since I can use like the password,
yeah.
we have to change that for the next one update.
I think you get used to it pretty fast, but also I don't want to make it mandatory to use Sequelize. But most of the features you're using is you're creating things with PG, or you're requesting things from the database. And those are things that can be done really easily with Sequelize.
Can you create databases in Sequelize, or do you have to create an initial database and then create tables?
I'm pretty sure you can create a database. I'm not really sure if you want to do it in your code.
Right.
Tables you do want to create in your code, and I'm going to talk about that later. How to do that with PG, but also how to do that with Sequelize, because especially when you're collaborating with people, you don't want to tell them create the tables manually, because it's tedious, but also because it's less consistent. If you're a human, maybe you're going to call a table a little bit different, but then the rest of the code expects it to be called in that particular way, and then it breaks. The short answer is create table if it exists, and Sequelize uses something like table definitions. You have to define your tables in Sequelize, and that's over here. But we're going to discuss that. So now we know how we can connect. There's going to be a example as well, of course. Basic usage. That's basically what I also discussed in the presentation in the slides. Basic usage. No, sorry, model usage. Sorry. And here you have the different methods you can use. Find by ID. Already know that one. Find one. And here you specify what kind of value in a column you want to match to an entry. So for example, you're looking for a user with a certain username. And you write here where, so that's the Sequelize part, username is equal to whatever you got from the form. Direct the body that username. But then it will return all the information it could find about that user. How would the SQL query look like? If I'm writing here username, and here rect that body, that username.
Select all.
Select all from user, where username is equal to rect that body, that username. Yeah. But this is a lot shorter. I find it cleaner. Yeah, can be really convenient to use Sequelize. All right, so find or create. This is really useful in case you want to sign up, because either look for it, and if it doesn't exist, then create it. And so if you want to sign up a user and the user already exists, you don't want to create a user. You want to tell the whoever is trying to create that user that the user already exists. But if it doesn't exist, everything is fine, and you can create a user. And Sequelize has a build. It's called find or create.
So it automatically checks whether.
Yeah, let's speak. Yeah.
If I now use my username as drop table,
Is it gonna be like, will take it wrong or?
Well, Sequelize will take care of that. It will take care of SQL injections.
Automatically.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Find all. I'm not going to discuss all of them, but find all, find or create are important.
So if the user already exists, like you get like an error or something?
No, you get the information of the user.
Okay.
If you got information of the user, you know that
Yeah,
it already existed.
Then you could send it back and say.
All right. I'm not going to discuss every feature. Eager loading. Eager loading is nested loading. Okay. So give me all the messages and include all the comments. It's called eager loading. And so you want to remember that. Something a lot of people look for a long time. It's called eager loading. So you want to retrieve all the information of all the messages, find all, but with the relations. Eager loading.
Like join tables?
Yeah, join tables will be part of that. All right. So pagination and limiting is if you want to, for example, give me the first 50, give me the second 50. So let's say you have something like eBay. Give me a second page, give me a third page, give me a fourth page. And you can do that with pagination or ordering. It's pretty self-explanatory. Instances. So instances. This is here. It is rows. It's also not self-evident. When you read evidence instances, you don't think, oh, here's where they're explaining how to create rows. But they do.
What were instances?
Creating rows. So querying is about retrieving information from the database. This is about creating. I don't find this here. User.create is the most used one. So I'm creating a user that's called Barfood, and he is an admin. So user.create is the most used one. They also have build. And you can create a lot of at the same time. You also have that function with PG. So here we're creating 3 users. This associations is setting relationships. Yeah.
Is admin something that is just
that's particular to this example is admin. So you are going to create a user and you want to store if it's an admin or not. Nothing necessary. It's an accidental example. Associations is setting relationships. Right. I'm going to dive into this in more depth. These are the more advanced topics. Transactions is about, I'm not going to discuss them in depth, but I want to tell you really quick what they're about so that maybe you can, if you stumble upon one of these issues that these topics can solve, you recognize it. So transactions are for queries that have to always finish in pairs. So a good example of a transaction is transferring money. transaction. Transferring money. So it cannot be the case that I transfer money from my bank account, but it's never added to your bank account, because that would mean I lost money, but I didn't pay my bills. So if something goes wrong in that process, it's gone from my bank account, and then the connection drops, it needs to be reversed. It can never be the case that only my money is gone, but the money is not transferred yet. And to do that, to guarantee that, you use transactions. And that is a general concept with databases. Things that need to occur always in combinations, and they have to be. And otherwise, when it doesn't work, needs to be rolled back. Transactions. Hooks are things that you can always execute before or after a query. So, for example, maybe before I transfer money, I want to check if there's money on my bank account, something like that. And after I've inserted a row, after I've transferred money, I want to check if that money is really transferred. So one is insert into, another is select from. So insert new money into your bank account, and then check if the money is really added. And they don't have to be SQL queries necessarily. They can be any kind of functions. Yeah, realize it's a bit vague, but you're not going to use them a lot. Migrations is about changing the database, but keeping track of every change, so that you can. It's like GitHub a little bit to your database. So maybe you broke something in your database, and it's a pretty big database. A lot of people are depending on it, and you want to undo the changes. And it's only possible when you use migrations. Or it's not only possible; it's only possible in a systematic way when you've used migrations. And it's also about changing your database, but keeping the data of the previous version.
So it just erases the mistake.
Yeah. Keeps track of the changes in your database migrations. All right. Enough talking. Let's get to it.
How to create a table?
Model definition. Very good. Yeah. Thank you, Stu. Model definition. So how we done it so far, a lot of you at least, is creating the tables directly in PostgreSQL. To some, I've thought that you can also create tables by using a query. I mean, create table do not exist for a more consistent result. Sequelize offers this functionality as well, and it's called model definition. It sort of expects you to always define the tables, right, or models in Sequelize itself. So I think it's not hard to deduce also the same logic from create table in PostgreSQL. This is the name of your table. These are the columns, and this is the data type. So how many columns do we have in this? Two, right? String text. Maybe that looks weird to use. String text, what is the difference? Pretty sure text is a longer kind of string. But yeah. Right, different kind of data types. Sorry? Yeah, you define them here, and then you sync them after. So that's also part of it. Right. So you create a separate file, and then you define your tables in this manner. and then later on you will sync them. I will show you how everything is combined in the in example code. For
What
now,
do you mean with syncing?
syncing is we've created the models right here, but we haven't told PostgreSQL, the database, about it yet. You do that with syncing. It's like, here are my model definitions, now sync, now apply them. That's basically what you mean.
So syncing is telling SQL to create.
Yes. So what is it syncing? Syncing is always synchronization between two things. Right? So what are these two things? This model definition in your PostgreSQL database. So it's syncing whatever was in your code with what is in the PostgreSQL database. So now they're in agreement about what the tables are. That's why I use the word syncing. But you could also call it creating the tables in the PostgreSQL database. All right, so now I want you to open a new, create a new folder in your computer, like Sequelize exercise or something, and do not create a database yet in Sequelize, create it in PostgreSQL. So create a new folder, call it Sequelize test or Sequelize exercise, create a database, give it whatever name you like, something sensible, and then we're going to, I think for the next hour, we're going to set up a database with Sequelize, query it, and yeah, create new entries, new tables, and hopefully that's enough to get you started. And I'm going to leave it up to you if you're going to fully utilize it. So do you realize Sequelize is not the biggest ORM out there because it's pretty bounded to Node.js, but ORMs is a very prevalent concept. So a concept that is used a lot, ORMs. And they all work in a similar way. All right, I'm going to do the same.
Yes. You went through the documentation. You covered some points. Would it be possible if you make like, I don't know, a small one-pager where you define the points that you discussed and like one small example of how to use it? Because what I have sometimes with documentation that I can just get lost.
Yeah.
There's so much. So you talked about hooks right now, but
so hooks are not important for you right now at this stage.
Maybe.
Yeah, I get your point. That's why I've been going through it. So to point out to you what important chapters are, I do want to write them down again. But getting started is important. Model definition. Querying, instances, and associations. Transactions are not important to you at this stage. Scopes are not. Hooks are not. Raw queries, what Risk asked about is that how you could write plain SQL queries in Sequelize. It's still possible. Migrations is also an advanced concept. And all this as well, you don't really need that. So model definition, getting started, querying, instances, and associations. And I'm going to elaborate more on this because also if I click on this model definition, it's not really clear what is important right here.
Yeah.
But this is right now. I want to discuss the example, and then we're going to discuss any problems that will come up.
so different, right? Because otherwise you use npm install Sequelize to
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
En dan kan ook een stapje in en die ook houden en dan weer
Ja, en later dingen anders goed gaan schrijven. Ik heb nu bijvoorbeeld allemaal dingen al gemaakt die ik gewoon weer kan gebruiken. En ja, het is een beetje raar dat ik niet kan veranderen.
Yeah. So it's not mandatory to use Sequelize. Cool to know about it, and then you can use it in a later stage where you're going to start from scratch. Yeah. So just have to make the exercise, but I don't expect you to rewrite all of your code that is already working just to make it compatible with Sequelize. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah.
You have to install it.
I need to get in it, but more importantly, npm init. npm install save. So install pg with it. Install Sequelize.
Alles wat je met npm wil installeren gewoon op één regel zetten. Dus
Yeah, so when necessary, you can also write npm install save pg and then npm install save Sequelize. It's more work.
Yeah.
It's less
you
work.
can do more packages next to each other.
Yeah, absolutely can.
all packages.
All packages. That's how npm works. So it's not a feature of packages. Okay. Sublime. JS. Yeah. I've not installed SQL yet on my new computer. Right. All right, so who's working on it? Who's bored? So when you know how Sequelize works already, and you want to know a little bit more advanced stuff, go to the Node Package Manager website, so npmjs.com, and look up Sequelize and look to an example project with Express. Try to understand the structure. It's already done that? Are you? Yeah, you did that? Okay.
What is the Express?
It's on a Node Package Manager website. There's a link to an example project with Express, and because Sequelize is not necessarily bounded to Express. Express is an is an architectural decision for a web server, but you don't necessarily need to combine Sequelize with Express. But there's an example with Express. We're using Express, and it's an example about how to structure your project the right way using Sequelize. And you can look into that as well. Yeah, in the meantime, I've done a PostgreSQL myself.
Zo nu Windows in plaats van andere laptop.
Yeah, but a new laptop.
Maar je gaat niet meer gebruiken foto's.
Yeah, I think I want to use both. I sort of mimicked Ubuntu a little bit with this shell emulator. I have a virtual machine, so I can start up Ubuntu on Windows. But I'm going to make it a dual boot as well. Just didn't have the time yet. And I want to give it a shot before criticizing it too much. Damn slow. Here's an Express example. And it's showing you, so it's an advanced example. Things are in here that you don't necessarily need, but it's good to get inspiration from for the file structure. So we don't need the migrations. But in general, this is a very good file structure for all your Express projects. As you can see, they have a separate folder for routes, public, one for configuration, for testing.
The fuse file, is it like only for fun?
We have been using it, yes, but there's something in architectural model for applications. It's called a model view controller, and it's about separating your view, so your presentational, the presentational part of your app, so the HTML, the CSS, from your database, the model. And controllers is, so to speak, the interaction between the two. And that separation of concerns, the model, database, controller, interaction, and view, presentational part, something called the model view controller architecture. And that is also what we have been using without you knowing until so far, mostly. Because we have been writing the views in a separate folder, views. We haven't really separated the controller from the database yet. But
it's like work with the standard companies to like write JavaScript with content.
All dynamic websites need JavaScript on the front end.
Yeah, but do they all use Puck?
No, Puck is not really big. But Puck is out there. They're like template engines, or use something as a template. Is used a lot. But things that are on the rise are things like React, Vue, Angular a little bit less. Those are things that won't need PUG anymore if you use one of those, but they're also more complex. But for example, with a language like PHP, you can write. It's also a template language out of the box. So with PHP, you can write backend stuff directly in your HTML. So you can write get me the user and then display the username directly in HTML. And PUG does something very similar. First, you're getting information about the user, and then you're sending it to PUG, and then render will render it for you. So conceptually, it is useful to learn PUG, but PUG is not really used a lot. But doesn't mean it's useless knowledge. Right, it's download right now. Ah, oh, damn, the internet's so slow.
Good preparation.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah. Right, so maybe it's a good idea to pause for 10 minutes, and then I'm set up as well. Right?
Yeah, like on the database instance, I wasn't clear. Dus eigenlijk kan ik een database creëren in de code. Als je weet dat je gewoon een database maakt. Nee, database. We gaan die vinden. Dan ga ik deze database. Als ik heb niet gezegd van je bent een model van Je mag niks zeggen. Je mag niks zeggen. Oké. Maar je mag niemand met doen dan met jezelf worden. Nee, dit is volgens mij is dat nog met samen. Dan moet je gewoon dat is niet best. Yeah, you this is one. You create a table. Yeah. And then you first
and then the second is variable or indicate whether it's unique. That's just the extension by the
That's all in there.
obviously like you response. So maybe one yeah, so that's not yeah, so like it's a small. I really think it's I'm not more time that everything has to be outside. I think like the default side plans. Yeah, like I think most of yeah.
How's your internet, guys? It's still slow?
Which
I don't know what to call that guy. What?
Which internet are you?
Yeah, and the guest account. Yeah. Ridiculous. Cost me almost a minute right now to download 3 MB. So you need to have entries of your database. What kind of database is it? What's your username? What's your password? It's all under getting started, Sequelize documentation, and you need tables as well. But first, try to connect. Connecting is the first prerequisite, because if you're not connected, you can also not create tables. First, try to connect.
Is it the same as?
But because now you're testing if the connection is there. I can already tell you.
Is it the same as the other app.js? Like, that you have all the const client, new client, and then
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah.
Very similar.
So yeah, very similar is like you need exactly the right, the same kind of information connected to the database. So the methods and names are a bit different.
Sequelize will replace the new client project.
Yeah, so I would not recommend rewriting all of your code. General, if you're writing software, you make what kind of changes in those process, that is important. Starting writing your essay in one language. Oh no, shit. Keep it in mind for future process.
Yeah.
Yeah, Express example is pretty advanced. I would recommend getting started with getting started with sections. Being Sequelize documentation. Yeah, try to connect to create a database. Try to connect to it using Sequelize.
You need your SQL shell for it as well.
Create a database. Yeah. Connect to it.
Okay.
Yeah. What's power? It seems like a lot of people are using
Alright. Package bundler. Okay, where was it?
You're always asking to install.
Comfortable now.
The allow.
It's a little bit like, yeah, with the NPM board in front end. Doesn't make it.
Section in front, I just oh, so you don't have to go actually find the name. You can just put a piece of code. So,
Yeah. Or just like telling Bauer to install jQuery, getting the CDN jQuery yourself. I don't know really what the difference is. Yeah.
how do I check in MySQL how many databases I have?
There's PostgreSQL. MySQL is the SQL.
Oh, that's why this doesn't work.
Yeah. So there's an SQL family. PostgreSQL is one of them. MySQL is one of them, but not the same.
Cool. Good to know.
In the model, is it stable?
Yeah, pretty much.
Export
Model, yeah, the definition.
Slash list, backslash list. Backslash list is for the databases, and
Yeah.
backslash DT is for table.
Yeah.
Q.
So what Sequelize does, if you sync with the database, you say for script, your table and create it again. So if you're going to connect to an existing database, and then you're going to find other models and use for sync is true, you're going to drop everything you have in your database again. So I would recommend creating a new database. So it's pretty much impossible to do.
When would you need for true? Seems like
Only development. We would never use for true in production.
right, because you lose all your entries.
Look at this. Alright, guys, you are on the YouTube stream. I have to restart, so I will send the link again. I'm back again.
Wow.
I look even better on a big screen.
From the side,
You don't want that.
Side.
if you look at yourself.
Better?
Why are you doing this?
Huh?
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because this is the default setting.
As in, why?
This is not.
YouTube?
Because a lot of people, and I'm recording it and making it live as well.
Ah, so like the deployments the last time.
Yeah.
Whoa, Inception.
All right, guys. Sorry for the bad preparation. It goes better right now. I've already created a new database in an SQL shell called demo. WI demos Sequelize X. All right, so as you can see, very basic setup. What's in my package.json, so you can see what kind of modules I've installed. Express, Pug, and Sequelize. Open the project right now. Sequelize, and there's nothing in here. All right, so we're going to start from scratch. I do have an idea how to start. I require Sequelize, but would be a good idea. I'm probably forgetting something, so if you want to be sure, look up the documentation. We'll try to mimic your kind of workflow as much as possible. So, getting started. I've already done this. That's about this part. First, we have to connect to the database, and this is very similar to PG. Right? We need exactly the same kind of data. We need to know what the name of the database is, the user, and a password. And right now, and a host as well. The extra thing we need to specify is what kind of database dialect are we using. With PG, that is clear. That's why you don't have to specify it, because PG is specifically written for PostgreSQL, but Sequelize is written for a wider range of databases. I mean, MySQL, SQLite, and MS SQL. So this part, I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to just copy paste it. Where are we? Yeah, save it. I'm not, for some reason, I'm not in the right directory yet. Yay, demo Sequelize. Go to call app.js. Right, so do we not need SQLite only? We don't need that. We're not going to use pools. This is pick 1, right? Not pick 4. So Postgres. I did not call my database. I call my database demo. Username, so my username is Postgres and my password is also Postgres. Also, to keep it simple, I'm not using environment variables, but this is how you use it normally. What else does it say? Well, test the connection. Do we need to test it? Well, you don't need it, but let's see. Let's try to run it. Connection has been established successfully. Yay! So we're connected to the database. So let's try to create tables. Sorry.
Did you create it already?
Yeah. So I'll create a. I'm pretty sure there's also an SQL query for creating databases, but you don't normally do that. Yeah. So we're connected to the database. Let's start to create tables, and afterwards we're going to try to make entries, and then we're going to try to retrieve those entries. That is what we're going to do in this demo. So we've connected to the database. Now we're going to create tables by using model definitions. Then we're going to create entries for those tables, and then we're going to retrieve those entries by using queries.
Why do you not need the pool stuff?
Yeah, this is for more optimization. It's more to share connections. Yeah, I want to keep it simple. Pooling is about sort of connections to databases, sort of expensive. So if there are multiple requests to the database, they can share the same connection. That's what pooling is about. It's more for in production. You want to think about optimization, but not for this example. Okay. Right. So your first model. Find a copy it. Of course, I'm going to extend it. Now, of course, so now that's self-explanatory. So what do we have here? The table is going to called user. This is the name of the table, how it's going to get created in the database. This is how we refer to it in our code.
And it gets pluralized, right? So it becomes users, or does it?
Yeah, very confident it does. Yeah. It's the name of the column, and we're specifying the data type. So how would this look in SQL? Let's do it. Create table. Do we remember? First name. Text. Here you call string. Right. Last name. Text. Because we are writing it different right now. What else does the user have? Well, email. type Sequelize string. All right. So this table is not created yet. It's just a definition. We're not telling PostgreSQL yet what to do with this definition. So we need to sync with the database. That's how it's called. But syncing basically means apply this definition. Get rid of this. This part, we'll explain it later. All right, so right now we're also telling the database is to use this definition and to apply it. You want to be very careful about this feature. You only use this in development. This is telling Sequelize to drop all the tables you had and create them again. So you're saying remove all the data you had and create it again. If you would ever use this in production, it would mean like all your users are gone.
If you do the force, it's true.
Yeah.
So why would you do it at all?
It's easier if you're in development because let's say you started out with a table with a first name and a last name, and now you're adding columns to it, like email, password. You're extending it. Then it can be very convenient to start with a clean slate, because maybe you've already created 3 users, and those 3 users only have a first name and a last name. And now you're adding that column. And now it's also possible to create users with an email and height or address. Now you have different kind of users in the same table. Right? Maybe you have 5 users that have an address, but the first 3 users didn't even have the option to have an address. And now you have entries that are hard to compare, and it can lead to bugs. So if you still have the luxury to throw everything away because it's nonsensical anyways,
but then you need to have
drop everything.
You need to have like somewhere that you can see this is the data, this is the table that you made, username, email, and password, and the other table with the address. So you drop everything, and now that you make the same long table again.
Yeah, with forces through, you start with a clean slate again. In production, if you would have a very big user base already, you have 20,000 users. You don't want to delete them all just because you want to add a column. But it is a little bit trickier from a programming perspective to have a happy marriage between the old version and new version. It takes more effort. You need to be more careful. But you only want to be more careful and do extra work when it pays off. And in the case you already have 20,000 users, it pays off to do that extra work. Right? If you're still in development and there are no reusers anyways, it doesn't pay off to go through the trouble. That's why you use forces through sometimes in development, and in development and in production you don't. All right, so let's run this and let's see if the tables are created. Just to prove to you I'm not talking nonsense.
Running is just.
Yeah, I've a build set up. I can do Control-B and it runs it directly.
Okay, like that.
As you can see, it will give feedback. Or it will say create table if not exist. So communicate the SQL query to me.
Unable to connect to database.
See, I have users. And Yuri, you and I were right. It does pluralize automatically. I cannot zoom in this SQL shell, but it says users, even though I've called it user. So it's a very buggy thing. You think I've called it user, like why does it call it users? Where it went wrong, and it didn't. That's how Sequelize works. And it's pretty intelligent because not in English, not everything is pluralized with an S. Sometimes with E's, right? Not babies. Give me an example where you don't simply write an S, but you write E. I-E-S. Yeah, sometimes where you pluralize, it's not simply an S.
Query.
Yeah, queries, right? So Sequelize will recognize that.
Okay.
Right? It will not write queries with an Y and an S. It will write queries with I-E-S.
So it's also smart.
It's also smart, but it's also trickier to find the
have
bug.
Connection. What did I do?
I'll attend to your individual problems later and finish the lecture first. So right now I don't have any entries yet. How do you create entries with Sequelize? Well, there's a user. So does it make sense to create a user here? Tell me. Pay attention to this part. Does it make sense? Does it make sense to create a user here and then sync after with forces true?
No. You keep dropping the table.
Yeah. Right. So first time I create a user, and like, delete it again. Right. Emo.com. So what will we see? SQL shell. Select all from users. Nothing. Right? Don't see anything. But right now, it's promise based. I can change the color scheme of this. Sorry. Yeah. Better? Better or Jesus? Right. So, a very simple database seeding could happen here. What do you mean with database seeding? Starting your database with actual entries you can work with. And so every time I'm dropping all my tables and creating them again, I'm also creating the first user, Owen Wilson.
Why would you again the forces true like in development?
Forces true in development, because with forces true, what you do is you drop all the tables. You know what dropping table means? Yeah. So you get rid of all the tables and you create them again. It also means that all your entries are gone. In production, you maybe have a user base of, I don't know, maybe thousands, like tens of thousands when you're lucky. So and every time you start your app again, you delete all of your users by user base. You don't get it?
Yeah, you don't want to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to do it. So you only use this in development.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah.
And even not always with development, because you don't want to, sometimes you want to keep your entries. You may. So this is a very tricky thing.
You can combine it with Postman to just drop everything, then recreate, I don't know how many entries with one.
Yeah, you can do that.
And if you and if you would be like sure that no entries would be added, for example, with the sign up page, you can leave out the forces true.
There are a lot of cases where I would or what not just use forces true. Is be aware what it does and decide for yourself when the moment is there if you really want to use it or not. I cannot give you general rule when to use it or not. The general rule would be if you want to keep your entries, don't use it. And it really depends on the situation if you want to keep all of your entries. Right, so now if you create a user, right? What would happen if I, okay, again, and then enough about forces through. What do you think will happen? How many Owen Wilsons will I have?
Depends on how many. Oh, you don't have first.
So right now I've started this at 3 times.
So 3.
Right? 3 Owen Wilsons. Because every time I'm syncing, I'm also creating a user. All right, do the same. Right, connect to Sequelize. Define a model. Define also an extra model. I want to see an extra model. Messages. Create an extra message, a model with a title and body, and then create a user and create a message. And then we're going to try to set the relations to those in the next part of this lecture. So is the exercise clear? Yeah. All right. That good? Is that clear?
Make an extra messages model.
Yeah. So do what I did, but then with an extra messages model and create a message as well. You do not have to link them to each other yet. We're going to do that in the next part. I know. Why I wanted to also do these. Or ironic. I don't know.
I got connection because I made a database with Sequelize with Scapro, but my PostgreSQL makes it to lowercase, so that's why I didn't have the connection. This is the database name. I made it like this, and I checked here, and it made it like this.
Yeah.
So that was the connection name.
Okay. Good. Figure it out.
Say you want to implement or use IDs in your tables, like we have.
So the serial primary key is automatically created.
But
You can specify, it doesn't hurt.
Oh, right.
But serial primary key is created by Sequelize automatically.
Okay. Let's say you oh well, no, yeah, never mind that. Okay, so it's created.
Nice.
To the year. Yeah. Ik precies hoe je dat uploadt, maar hoe het lijkt op het uploaden. Het is niet meer uitgevoerd. Hoe je dat uitgevoerd.
Ja. En waar zit je deze definitie?
Ja, die zet je maar apart. Kan ook je wil niet al je mannen zien hoe je gaat. Was ready or?
Yeah. This constant that I'm making should be the same as a table name.
Capitalize. That's a convention to capitalize user.
Okay, that's fine.
That's
So
this is the reference how it's used in the PostgreSQL database.
Mm-hmm.
So it's referred to, but then pluralize users, and this is how it's referred to the table in your code. In your code.
Table in that.
So if you want to create a user or you want to find out users, use user with a capital U.
Okay. And same thing with all the other. If I want to make messages.
Also with a capital.
Emails. Okay.
Also capitalize. Yeah.
And in the sync thing, in the sync code, I have to use that same capital.
Exactly, because that's how you use it in your code. Yeah.
So user.sync and user.create.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, because the live steps up there.
All right, is ready? Ready? Doing different things. All right, so everybody's ready. So right now, show you how to set relations. Just as with, so the relations are part of the model definition as well, because you either need a join table or you need a foreign key. You do not have to specify the foreign key column or the join tables manually with Sequelize. So that's another advantage of using Sequelize. It is less complicated when you're joining tables. You just only have to specify, give me the users with all the comments, and it will do all the joining for you. So where can you find this in the documentation? Underneath associations. And I want to help you out a little bit with understanding this section, because I think it gives you the most advantages using Sequelize, but it's also the most difficult to understand. It's in the documentation. So they use certain kind of terminology. It's called source and target. If I'm setting the relation between user and project, so these are just examples. In our case, is user and messages. This is this is source. This is the target. This is the source. This is the target. The source is what you invoke this method on, and the target is what you pass to that method. And furthermore, belongs to associations are associations where the foreign key relation exists on a source model. So basically telling you, when I use this, when I would say user belongs to project, which table is going to get the foreign key? Or message belongs to user.
The message table.
And message table is going to get the foreign key. In other words, belongs to associations are associations where the foreign key to the one-to-one relation exists on a source model. One-to-one relation.
And the source model is the user.
No, in this case, messages. Messages.
So it adds the user ID to the source model, which is the table that you're connecting to.
Now, source model means, so this is a source model. This is a target model. This is a source model. This is a target model. The source model is, so to speak, what comes first. The target model is what you pass to this method. So one-to-one relationship, what is that?
Like a specific, like comment relates to a specific message.
No, it's when it's equal, like any one person. Maybe this is one.
So does it make sense to have a one-to-one relationship between users and messages?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you can only write one message, right?
No.
Right.
Well, maybe you do want.
It's like one person, one is a number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So is that exactly what we're looking for? So what other options do we have? Belongs to many. I know the answer. One-to-many associations. So what kind of relationships do you have? You have one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. So first is that one-to-one. You don't use it that much, but we haven't been using it in our cases a lot. But there are a lot of use cases. One-to-many. All right, one-to-many associations are connecting one source with multiple targets. All right, the targets, however, are again connected to exactly one specific source.
One user.
So one project, the source, one source with multiple targets. Right? Users are the target. So a project can have many users. What do we want to have in our case? We're talking about users and messages. How would I write that down?
Users.
Has many
messages.
Yeah, one source, user, has many messages. Right, so let's do that. First, I'm going to create the messages. Model. And note that I'm not calling it messages, but I'm calling it message because Sequelize will pluralize it for you automatically. I think it also, when you would write down messages, it will still work.
Yeah, I have user.
So its title is what is it? It's a string, right? Type Sequelize string.
Why do you use the capital S for Sequelize there?
Yeah, because it comes out of this library. I could also call it, but
so it's just a function.
Isn't it like the object or like something has to be within the technical letter? Can you write new array, new object?
well, I could call this like Sequelize lowercase as well, but Sequelize lowercase is already reserved for the connection with the Sequelize database. Client capitalized in PG and client small in PG. Right? Client big is the module. Client small is its specific connection to the database. Sequelize with a capital refers to the whole module, and it also has all the definitions of the data types, and this is a specific connection.
So yeah, if you want to use model export, you have to use the small one. Include the small one if you want to use the different one.
The connection. Yeah, because later on, of course, we're not going to structure our project like this. When we would also write the routes in there, it will become a total mess. So I'm also going to show you, make a better file structure. And then we need to indeed export Sequelize, lowercase Sequelize. Title, what else do we have? Body. Right. Note that I'm not writing the foreign key definitions in this definition because something else does that for us, namely by using the has many method, the foreign keys are taken care of automatically, and also the join tables when there is need of one.
And what creates the primary key?
So we have, it's also done automatically. So user has many message. Voila. That's all we need. Yeah, we don't need to set the foreign keys. Right? So it's another example of how Sequelize is easier, more user-friendly than plain SQL queries.
How would it know, for example, that the message is related? Like normally, if we include a message, then we would like pass on the record session that ID.
Yeah, that's setting a relationship. That's we're going to discuss it as well. Right? So of course now we have defined the modules in such a way that's possible for the messages and the users to be related, but we haven't told what the relation is. Right? Then we're going to create 20 users and 50 messages. It's not clear which message has been written by which user, and we need to set the relationship by that for that. And we're going to.
Does it matter where you put that? The sync should be before.
Should be before. Yeah. Makes the most sense. All right, let's see if it works. All right, it works. And just for the technical purposes, you don't need to do this, but I want to show you what has been changed. All right, there's no foreign key column over here. What do you think? Will there be a foreign key column in messages? Messages doesn't exist.
Message. You made it.
No, it should pluralize automatically. Very good.
You don't have a table.
Yeah, so.
Are you testing also or something?
No, not testing you. It's been a while since I've used Sequelize. But yeah, of course, I'm testing.
Sequelize.
Yeah, but that's correct. So, yeah. Let's say you have 20 model definitions, and you find it tedious to write user.sync and messages.sync and shopping cart.sync and I don't know what kind of other tables you have. You just write Sequelize.sync and it will sync all the tables you have to find.
So much easier.
Yeah, but we we didn't have that problem yet because we only had one table. So yeah. So Sequelize.sync will sync all the tables for you. Sorry? Taggers? Sorry? Integers. Oh, yeah. Well.
You make it in the type.
Height.
Yeah.
And then you specify type Sequelize at integer. Yeah. So we are no way limited to using just strings. We can use booleans. We can use dates. I already get the question. It's the same with creating table with an SQL query. You can specify every column and the data type it has.
You have 10 columns and you want one of them to be an integer.
It's perfectly fine.
Can you write type string and then say this one?
Yeah, just like we're doing here. I could say I could make this an integer. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's fine.
Can you specify the table and then make an exception for one column?
No. For every column, you need to specify it. What kind of data it is expecting. Socialism. No, it's more like capitalism. Everybody, you can customize everything.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you can have a red car, blue car. You can have letters. All right.
I mean, there's no middle way.
Why?
All right. So, all right. So right now we're going to create. I'm going to address your individual questions later. So now we have created the possibility to have a relation as well. As you can, yeah. And as you can see, here's a foreign key column. I want to demonstrate that right now. The messages table has a foreign key column, even though here it is. We did not write it over here. has been created automatically because we use this.
It's easier now.
All right, so let's create a message over here as well. Message dot create. Title is poetry. Body. Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense to
Capitalism is the exploitation. No, exploitation? Yeah, exploitation. Exploitation of man by man. Wow. Communism. Or communism is the exact opposite. All right.
Wouldn't it make more sense to create something before synchronizing it?
Yeah, I'm going to finish the example first, and then yeah. So right now we've created a message. We have not set the relation yet. So first, I'm going to show you where to find it in the docs. You like this one?
I turned around and it's so easy.
It makes you happy. I know it does. Associating objects. Part of why I'm scrolling away from it. This is showing you how to set a relationship after the two already have been created yet. So we already have a user, we already have a message, and we want to create, want to set the relation later. What I'm looking for is to create with a relationship.
So to set the connection before you make a message.
Yeah, so you want to create a message and set the relation automatically or at the same moment. And these examples show you how to set a relationship after the two entries already have been made. In some cases you want to do that, but in our case you want to create a message with the association already.
So the message initiates the table?
Wait a sec. Stupid. Where is it? Right. So Google create Sequelize. Create with association. Right. So we can set the ID here. So user ID. User ID, that's the foreign key column, is 1. Does it make sense? We're setting the foreign key column. That's one way. As you can see, our messages, it's linked.
But then that's hard code.
Yes and no if you have started a session.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, if you start a session, we'll do it like.
Because when I did it, I have an empty table, a table with a title, but no user ID at the end.
Yeah, because you haven't specified. Association objects. Belongs to many. So here, you could read this, is that they create a project and a ... communicates to you that you need to specify what kind of values you want to create it with. and we're having two tasks, and we want to associate these two tasks to this project. You say project set task, task, task. It's a sort of, a lot of people don't like this syntax of Sequelize because where is it?
No.
We have users. And want to set messages. How will we call this? Set messages. But now we have a method that is defined dynamically based on how we call our tables. If we have a car dealer and we want to set cars as a relationship to a car dealer, we would have all of a sudden we'd have a method called set cars.
Nice.
I'm not a big fan of it, but that's how Sequelize works. So this set task you will not find in the documentation because these are created dynamically. Depends on how you call your tables. Now, and we have never seen that before, like methods that are created dynamically. Is that point clear?
Is it the placeholder?
No, it's a method.
Yeah, but like set.
So set is always it will create this method always with set, and then however you call your table, and then in camel case, that's how it works. I find it a little bit, I would call this magic. Sometimes in some libraries you will use magic. It's not really clear how it works. It just works like that, and you call it magic. I'm not a big fan of magic. I want to understand, or I want to be able to understand how it works.
I missed like where you made the column user ID for the message.
Yeah, so I didn't. That's what Sequelize does for us. Because I say user has many message. It knows I need a foreign key column, but because I'm saying you have user, you have message, and it's a one-to-many relationship, then it knows it needs to set a foreign key. Create a foreign key column for message.
So we'll use, in order to define the name of the column, and we'll use the name of the other table, and then pass ID after it with the capital.
Yeah. So there's again, it's a convention that you call it after. Foreign keys are called after the table they're linked to. Right? So it's called user ID. It's camel case. So it's user.
Camel case.
Yeah. You can also set your own custom names for your columns, but let's not go into there yet. So what we have done so far, we have connected to a database. Use the Sequelize. We have created the tables. We have created an entry. Two entries, one for users, one for messages, and we have set a relationship. So now you're basically able to do all the things you were able to do with SQL as well.
Without a query.
Yeah, without writing a query yourself. So I want to pass it back to you. Set a relationship between 2 users and 5 messages. So create another 5 messages. Yeah, that's very doable. So create another user. Yeah, so you have 2 users. And create 5 messages, and then set some relations. Right? I don't really care what message is related to what user, as long as there is a relation. And the next step will be to retrieve all the messages of a certain user.
Maybe an unrelated question, but how do you create a message without hard coding that you related then? Because now message.create makes the message in the database, but now you have a HTML page. How would that?
I'm not ignoring you. I'm showing you.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
all right.
I know.
Oh. Create a user. Dot set messages. Wait a second. So create a user.
So you want to take out the user ID again when creating these messages.
Wait a sec.
But you have the title and the body of the message. What if that is left upon the user itself?
Oh yeah, that would come out of a foreign rector body.
Okay. Rector body. That's okay. Yeah. But the created user is referred to where?
That's what. There's something created here. It's a user created here, and result. So in SQL, you would write returning all. That user that's created here, that particular user, is passed to this callback function in this then method.
But then, okay.
And the created user.id is the ID of the user that's created here.
Okay. Yeah, the other question that I had, what if you don't want to force drop the table every time? Do you have to use sync for the users and the messages?
No, just skip the forces through part.
Skip the force.
No, just get it out of there.
Get out of here.
Je moet je dan nu weer, ik heb nu dus twee users, 5 messages, maar ik heb ook die user. Deze message.
Nou ja, je hebt nu al die messages dat er één user maakt niet even uit welke mensen welke user hoort, maar als wel
Ja.
Is it standard that the column that it adds with the user is written in camel case, or it has the?
Yeah, it's a convention. Not camel case. It's a convention. In Sequelize it is.
Because I saw in the documentation that it had user ID camel case or user _ ID.
Yeah, I think you can change in the settings. So like,
okay.
More I'm more camel case or a snake case kind of person. Sneaky.
This was what the issue that I wanted to show you. I created a message, I created the user, but the user ID is empty. So how do I not drop the table and make the message again, but just add this user?
And drop the table.
It has to.
I just drop the table.
This user.
Yeah, just drop the table. It's easier, and you're not really emotionally attached to this particular user, right? So.
Oh, Wilson, man, he's fine.
Nah, he's good.
Yeah.
I like him, but it's not the real Owen Wilson, so it's fine. Huh?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 5 places. His nose is the same.
Explain.
Okay.
So I have the messages and the users, and then you should look through the documentation to find
What? Sorry?
the rest of the assignment. So I have the messages, I have the users. Now what do I do with them?
Now you're done, and then I'm going to tell you how to get all the messages of a particular user. Yeah.
Is it one already? God damn. How can you give IDs to the user created? Because now I have 2 user create. How do I give an ID to user created? first.
The zero primary key is created automatically. This is
Does it make sense to 5 messages dot sync with force through?
you only use force through once to Sequelize. Don't worry about the force through. So it's not really relevant yet. Like just so use force through in all cases.
In all cases.
In all cases.
No.
All cases.
Oh.
Just use them every time you start a project. Yeah, you run a program. Use force through.
Yeah, but I'm using force through in all the messages dot sync now.
And all the messages that sync, you only have to sync once.
I'm making messages. Messages here, the message one.
Why are you writing? Why you're syncing twice?
Yeah, that's what I asked you. Message sync for the user and sync for the.
So you can either you don't sync individual entries. You sync tables or you sync all the tables. And now. Right. There you go. Okay. So there you go. And use you have to change it to what?
Sequelize.
Yeah, exactly. My boy.
And there I use this force selection. And the Sequelize. User.
Ja. Ja, wat doen jullie? Yeah. It's a Wildcat tradition so far. Always had lunch.